Welcome, friends of the Greasy Shop Rag. Today we're going to take a look at a Husqvarna 130 chainsaw. Customer complaint is that it won't stay running at idle. It keeps petering out. So what we're going to do here is we're going to perform a service update on this chainsaw. There was some complaints of the saws not idling or hard to start when they're cold. Or even, let me check my notes. Unstable, rough idle, difficulty starting at low temperature, demanding more than one start attempt before engine will remain running, and engine shuts off once trigger is released. So those are the complaints in the service bulletin that this is going to address. Now this is an older saw. This is like a 21 model. And the reason I'm posting this and going through it is because a lot of you guys that are working in shops that are not dealers, you're going to start seeing these saws come through. You know, they're out of warranty now. They're used saws. And, you know, people are going to be complaining. A lot of times the saws are sold. They're not the original owners. People have just dealt with the problem, whatever. Where you sell a saw at a rummage sale and the new guy can't get the run right. You might start seeing some of these come in and you just can't figure out how to fix this thing. Well, the service bulletin calls for a new carburetor, a new ignition coil, and a new clutch in order to fix these problems.
Gripes.
So according to the service bulletin, the new ignition module is going to be a little bit of timing advance to keep it running better when it's cold and have better throttle response initially when it's cold. And both the new ignition coil and the old ignition coil are fully interchangeable with the original flywheel. So here's our carburetor. It comes with the purge bulb attached. You know, this is probably going to make my top 10 list of pain in the butt carbs to swap out. You wouldn't think so. It looks pretty simple, but you'll see in here that I struggle a bit. I don't think it was just a bad day. Could have been. I hadn't done a lot of these at this point, so maybe it's just a case of, you know, inexperience. So this secondary throttle assembly looks a little bit different, and I'm gonna have to replace it. I'm matching it up right now, trying to decide. Do I even have to swap that out? I don't remember which carburetor came off of here, if it was the Walbro or the Rui Ching. And it looks like I'm going to replace it. It must be just a little bit different. Probably in the linkage. Can't quite tell yet if that's a Walbro or not. Might get a good look at it. So we're taking the throttle wire off right now. And the fuel line is still attached. We'll have to get that off. There we go. And we've harvested some brand of carburetor. If you have to replace just the carburetor and you've got a Walbro on there, you can go ahead and just replace that carburetor. But if you have a Rui Ching carburetor, you're going to replace the carb, the ignition coil, and the clutch. Alright, now I'm popping the wires off the kill switch. And that's because those wires are connected to the coil. And the coil's getting replaced. That also means you probably want to do this job in a certain order. Because if I completely replace that carb and put that air filter base back on there, and then had to run these wires back in there and connect them to the kill switch, I'd be taking a bunch of stuff apart. I'd have a bunch of stuff in the way. So if you're doing the complete job, there is some method to the madness in doing it this way. You can see that the wires are part of the coil. What are we digging for? Our new coil. Alright. There is a different part number on that coil, so I was just verifying that. And we'll set this at the same 0.3 millimeter air gap as most all Husqvarna chainsaws. We'll get it close, we'll go get the gauge. We're just going to slide the gauge in between the coil and the magnets of the flywheel and then snug it down. Alright, that looks good. And I always like to double check the gap afterwards. Sometimes you have to go back and reset it. You know, things just flex or move or shift around, whatever. That boot is kind of stiff. There we go. And then we got the kill wire. So there's a hole in the side of the case that it's got to pass through. And a little track to lay it down into. That looks pretty good. We'll put our air conductor in place. And our starter. We shouldn't have to go back in there again. And we'll put the right bit on the driver. That was the T20 I had in there. Okay. Now our kill wires can go onto our kill switch, which is mounted in the air filter base. And you know, earlier I said that this carb would make the top 10 list of biggest pain in the butt jobs that I've done. And you're going to see here in a minute where I speed through some of this because it's just ridiculous amount of fiddling around I had to do. And it was just because, well, that line on that purge bulb is kind of short. And then you got to get the choke lever lined up from the carburetor to the lever itself. Here I'm pushing the fuel line back on the carburetor. Then we got a throttle wire. Got that hooked up. That all went pretty good. Secondary throttle valve assembly. The linkage is a little bit fumbly, but there you go. That looks like it's going to work right once everything's bolted together. Nice shot at the top of my head. Alright, this is the part that I struggled with this. There's not a lot of room for this air filter base to squeeze in here. First I got to get the kill wires underneath the choke linkage. So that's what I'm doing right now. Just trying to route it so it's not going to get all tangled up. And then fitting this purge bulb, you know, I got to get the fuel line pushed on it. I got to get the air filter base lined up. And I get the purge bulb snapped into the base. And I mean, it maybe didn't look so bad, but I did speed it up 5 times. And I just felt like I had struggled with that. Still struggling to get things lined up. That air filter base has a couple of saddles that it sits in. We're kind of getting that squared away. There's the saddle on that side. And the saddle on this side. I mean, it looks pretty good right now. Looks like it functions properly. I must not have been in a hurry during this repair because it seems like I'm spending a lot of time just looking at things. And I think maybe this could be a case of this was the first time I did this job, and you know, you just got to take it all in so you can refine these repairs. If you're working at a dealership and you know you're going to have a dozen of these come through or whatever it might be, it's nice to have a system so you can move along a little faster. The other nice thing is that, you know, the company's going to pay us a flat rate for these repairs when they come in on warranty. And the faster you can do them, the better off the dealership is, because, you know, they're not real generous on their times always. So if you can refine the job and find shortcuts, whatever, that all helps. So another part of the service bulletin was the clutch. So this clutch has a new spring in it that raises the engagement RPM. It's going to help keep it running when the engine's cold. There's our old clutch. And you'll notice that the new clutch has got this painted mark on it. So that's a big clue right there. You don't necessarily know if the whole service bulletin was performed, but if you don't see that paint mark, you know that none of the service bulletin was performed. So if you're wondering if, you know, this was done to your saw and you don't have access to a database or anything like that, that's one way to kind of pin it down. So we got the new clutch on there, and really it's just the spring that has to be replaced. I don't remember if they send it as a whole clutch or what. I mean, they obviously sent it as a whole clutch here, but if I had to order it that way or not. Alright, we got our bar and chain on here. A little bit snug. And the air filter's going on. This is kind of a unique design for a Husqvarna. Alright, we're going to put this thing together and see if it starts. And if it does, we might have to do some carburetor adjustments. But that's all I'll have for you on the Husqvarna 130 or Husqvarna 135 Mark II that needed a service bulletin performed so that it would start and run better. Thanks for watching. Later.